We left off with a cliffhanger last week at the end of Perek Gimel, at the end of chapter 3. We asked a question. We said that really all created existence is but a sunbeam, that just like a sunbeam, it appears to have distinct existence as an entity unto itself, but that's just a subjective phenomenon that's created by the sunbeam shining onto the earth. But if you trace it to its source, you will not find sunbeams, you will find sun. And so too, every created being appears to be a distinct entity, but if you could trace it to its source and see its source, you would realize that there is no creation, there's only creator. The only real existence is the creator. And then we asked the question, okay, great, but if that's the case, how do things even appear to exist? Because in the mashal, in the parable of the sunbeam, you had that distance between the sun and where the sunbeam is hitting. And in the nimshal, in what we're describing, there is no distance, because the source of everything, Hashem himself, is omnipresent. So how, and remember the way we phrased the question at the end of chapter 3 was, how is it possible that created beings have any type of even relative or subjective existence? How is that possible? Okay. Like why aren't, I think the way you phrase it is, why are they not nullified out of existence? Just like the sunbeam in the sun. Remember that? Yeah. Okay. And we said, but in order to explain this, or in order to understand this, we have to explain something else first. All right, so chapter 4 is that thing that we need to explain first. Perek Daled, chapter 4, Ki hinei ksiv. It is written, Ki shemesh u'magen Hashem Elokim. Because the sun and its shield is Hashem Elokim. This is a verse from Tehillim, from Psalms, yeah? 80, what is it? 84. 84:3? 12? Okay. Havayah Elokim. Let's talk about this. Shemesh and Magen, sun and shield, are metaphors. And we're going to speak about what the sun is and what the shield of the sun is. Havayah Elokim are two shemos, two divine names. And we're going to speak about, in this chapter, the name Havayah. But before we go into the text, I just want to give you a little bit of a heads up. Okay. So we have two aspects of the metaphor, the shemesh and the magen, the sun and the shield. And we have two aspects of the nimshal, of what we're comparing it to. Havayah and Elokim, two shemos, two divine names. Okay? And that's a one-to-one correlation. The shemesh is like Havayah, the magen is like Elokim. Say it in English. The sun is like the divine name Yud Ke Vav Ke, the tetragrammaton. The shield of the sun, whatever that is, we haven't gotten into it yet, is like the divine name Elokim. I don't know how to translate that. Okay? Good? Good. All right. Pirush magen, the meaning of the magen, the shield, hu nartik l'shemesh. It is a container for the sun. Lahogin shiyuchlu habrius lafsavlai. It shields the sun so the created beings can tolerate it. In other words, it's a shield for the sun, not to protect the sun, but to protect us from it. I spoke to an astronomer who actually, his specialty was the sun. And I asked him, where is the magen? Like, what's the English word for it? And it was very interesting. I mean, this is just the Das Yochid, it's one guy I spoke to, but he told me that magen is not a thing, it's a process. It's not a thing, it's a process. He said it's not like there's an actual object called the sun shield. He said it's a property of the sun. I think he said it's basically due to the sun's gravity, but the word he used was opacity, the opacity of the sun. The opacity of the, like the word opaque, Basically, it's the property of the sun which makes it, this is how he described it to me, pull back its rays.
Force field.
Force field? Isn't force field like kind of like sci-fi? Yeah. But whatever it might be, I thought it was, no, it's not the ozone. And I hear a lot of people say, oh, maybe it's the ozone. I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense, the ozone. Because the ozone is a shield for the earth. This is a shield of the sun. So whatever it might be, he's going to describe to us what it is, at least as far as what we need to know Kabbalistically about it. But it's this property of the sun that makes the sun's rays more tolerable. That without that property, called the mogain, the rays would be too intense and destructive. Kamam Razal, like the sages say, Lasid Lave, in the future, when Mashiach comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu meitzi chamim en artika, Hashem is going to take the sun out of its container. Reshaim nedenim ba chulu. The wicked will actually be punished by it because it's not going to be pleasant. It's going to be very intense. You're going to have sunscreen. The tzaddikim are going to have special sunscreen. Ukamei shahanartik megin ba'ad shemesh, and just like this container of the sun diminishes the sun, guards us from the sun, kach, so too, Shem Elokim, the divine name Elokim, Megan l'Shem Havayah Baruch Hu, is a shield for the name Havayah.
Like a filter?
Filter's a good word. So you have a sun and its shield, sun and its filter, sun and its buffer, sun and its, however you want to call it.
Isn't it like symptom?
I don't know that word yet. I haven't learned that word.
Are you using the word Magen like in Magen David?
Yeah, shield. Havayah is like the sun. Elokim is like the shield. Now, Havayah and Elokim are both Hashem. They're both Hashem. Hashem hu Elokim. Hashem, meaning Havayah, is Elokim. So they're both Hashem. But these are two aspects of Hashem. One is like the sun putting out the light. The other is like the sun's shield diminishing the light, making it more tolerable. And they're working in a dynamic interplay with each other to sort of get it just right, like Goldilocks said. Fine-tune.
Is this like Elokim din? Judgment?
So Elokim is din, is judgment. And the idea there is to make a judgment, to like tone it down. That's a judgment, right? Tone it down. Right? So that's what Elokim is doing. It's
Toning down all the chesed?
You could say it's toning down the chesed. The Havayah is chesed. Yeah. Let's see. Let's go a little further. Okay. So Elokim is toning down the Havayah. Now what's Havayah? Because later on we're going to explain more at length what Elokim actually is. But here we're going to talk about Havayah. The Shem Havayah, this name Havayah, Yud K Vav K. We don't even pronounce the letters in succession, let alone attempt to pronounce the name itself. Okay. So these letters, Yud and He and Vav and He, Perusha, they mean Shemahave es hakol ma'ayin layesh. He who is mehave, remember we spoke about before? It's not just he's mechayeh, which means he gives life to everything, but he's mehave, he gives it its existence. So Havayah means Hashem who is mehave, who brings things out of nothingness into somethingness. And that's what that Hey and Vav and Hey communicates. But what's the Yud at the beginning? So he says that has a syntactic role. VeHaYud mishameshes al hapu'ula shibolosh heva v'tamid. The Yud at the beginning shows that the verb is constant. Kidapirish Rashi al aposik, like Rashi says on the verse, Kocha yase iav kolayomim. Such was Job wont to do all of those days. He was constantly doing it. Yase could mean future, he will do, but also grammatically it could mean he was doing it ongoing. It was an ongoing action. So grammatically, we know that yud at the beginning of the verb can indicate something that is an ongoing action. And in this case, what is the verb? The hey and the vav and the hey means bringing into being. So really, the name Yud Kei Vav Kei means he who is continuously bringing everything into being.
Is this a new idea? Didn't we already say that 2 weeks ago? The Koach HaPoach.
We did say it, and you're right, we did say that it's constant, and in a couple of lines he's going to say, remember we told you this already? So you're 100% on the right page. Yeah. VeHaEmunah, that is to say, what does it mean that he's constantly bringing it into being? That life force that's constantly flowing into all the created beings from Hashem's mouth, from his breath, and is bringing them into existence, from nothing to something, at every single second. It's not sufficient that they were brought into being in the 6 days of creation. That wouldn't keep them going. Like we explained above. So you're correct. Yes, we already are familiar with this concept. He's explained to us just now what that divine name Havayah is, that when we speak about the fact that creation is ongoing, okay, so what is that aspect of Hashem that is expressed in maintaining existence? It is Havayah. Havayah is Hashem as he is constantly renewing existence, created existence, out of nothingness. That is Havayah. Okay. So far, so good, yeah? We're good? All right. Now, what's more impressive? Doing or not doing?
Depends on the context.
It depends on context. You guys are so smart. Okay. So we tend to get more impressed with doing, and we don't even think about not doing. But what we're going to try to do here is appreciate that the not doing is just as impressive as the doing. It's a little bit counterintuitive, so we're going to have to go slowly and thoughtfully. Okay.
There are much more mitzvahs that are doing than are not doing.
There's much more that are not doing. 365 not doing.
365
Right.
and the two,
Right.
So
Right.
does that lead one to believe that the not doing is more?
The not doing could be superior in that sense, yeah. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about Hashem's not doing. All the creating that Hashem is not creating, and which ironically is that which makes creation a creation. Because if Hashem were infinitely creating, then there would be no filter and there would be no creation. Because if he would just be projecting his unbridled infinity, there would be no room for creation. So the holding back is just as important as the issuing forth. The stopping is just as productive as the starting. Like, we all know what it means to stop because you're tired and you need to rest. But that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about here is the stopping is just as much as the process of creation as the going. We're going to explain. Okay, let's continue. Okay. V'hinei b'sider shvachav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu ksiv hagadol hagiber chulo. When we enumerate Hashem's praises, we say he is the Gadol and the Giber. Hagadol v'hagiber, right? So Gadol means he is great. Giber means he is strong. He's great and strong. These are just superlatives. Okay, they have very specific meanings. Gadol and Giber have very specific meanings.
Is it possible to not be great and be strong?
They're two different things. Gadol, greatness, is talking about expansion. How Hashem expands. How he creates. Giber is talking about strength, how he contains. So if you want to say Havayah and Elokim, yeah, you'd be right. You could also say Shemesh and Mogin. You'd also be right. Okay. So Hagodil v'Hagibar. Upirish Hagodil. What does it mean? Godil, great. Himidas Chesed. There's another word for it. Chesed, kindness. V'his pashtos, and expansiveness. V'his pashtos achayis, the expansion of the life force. B'chol olam ha'esu bruyim, into all the worlds and all the created beings, le'ein ketz v'tachlis, without any limit or end. If it's truly Godel, it's infinitely so. It's expansion without limits, endless expansion, never ending. That created beings should come into being out of nothingness as an expression of Hashem's gratuitous kindness, his chesed chinam. So Gadol means that Hashem expands and creates, and he never stops. V'nikras Gdula, and this property of Hashem is called Gdula, bigness. Chesed is called Gdula, like we say, L'cha Hashem, Hagdula v'Hagvura v'Hatiferes v'Hanetzach v'Hahoid. Instead of saying L'cha Hashem HaChesed v'Hagvura v'Hatiferes v'Hanetzach v'Hahoid, why do we say Hagdula? Because Gdula is Chesed. It's the same concept. Translate Chesed as kindness, but Chesed is Gdula. It's expansiveness. It's going out of yourself. It's an approach. It's a drawing near, self-expression. That's what chesed is. So it's called gedula. Because it's an expression of Hashem's expansiveness. Ki gadol Hashem, because Hashem is great. And there's no probing the depths of his greatness, meaning he's infinitely great. He can expand and expand and expand and give 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 and never stop. Therefore, that's why he emanates forth this life force and this existence, something out of nothing, for the worlds and the created beings in it. Ein Ketz, without limit. He creates, he makes, he builds without limit. Sheteva hatoiv lahetiv, because the nature of the good is to do good. He's not withholding, he's giving, 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 giving. Vihine. Now, behold. Here's the hard part, and it takes maturity. It takes maturity to appreciate this. And I'm going to really, really plead with you. Don't rush to say that you understand this and say, yeah, I know, I get it. No, just go slowly. Because here's the problem, living in 2024, that Torah Baal Shem Tov is so ubiquitous that sometimes you never get the chance to truly appreciate and savor a chiddush of Torah Chassidus, because you've heard it in the ether enough that it feels right. It already feels right, and you don't get the paradigm shift aha moment. So I just want you to slow down. I know everyone here has been exposed to these ideas, some to more so than others, but everyone here has been exposed to a certain degree. I just want you to slow down, and instead of being like, yeah, I know. I want you to slow down and understand that the Alter Rebbe is taking time right now, his holy time, and devoting it to explaining a concept that needs to be explained. It's not a no-brainer. It's a very counterintuitive concept. So let's give the Alter Rebbe our full attention and absorb how radical this concept is. Okay. V'hinei, now behold. Just like this midah, this attribute, which attribute? Which attribute are we talking about? What? Chesed, which is also called Gdula. Great. Just like this chesed and this Gdula is the praise of Hashem alone. What does that mean, the praise of Hashem alone? Meaning it is uniquely godly. That ability to create something from nothing, that's uniquely godly. And to do so infinitely, that's uniquely godly. So to create something from nothing constantly and infinitely without any limit, that is uniquely the praise of Hashem. It is not within the power of any created being to create something from nothing and to enliven it. This attribute is above the comprehension of any created being. Meaning to say, we cannot truly fathom this concept. We can get a basic glimpse of it. I get the basic idea, but we can't truly fathom what it means creation something from nothing, eternally, infinitely, without waning, without limits. No, we can't wrap our minds around that. Not only we can't do it, we can't truly comprehend it. Is everyone okay with that as a statement? Are we humble enough to say that ultimately Hashem's ability to create, to make existence where there had been no existence, that really is fundamentally beyond our ability to understand? Well, we can talk about it. We are talking about it as best we can. But to really get to the bottom of it, it's fundamentally incomprehensible. Are we all okay with that? We're comfortable with that we don't really, really understand how Hashem creates something where there was nothing? And we all could understand that not only we can't do it, but we can't really even understand it. Okay. She'en koyach b'seichel shum nivra. It is not within the ability of any created intellect lahasig midazu, to properly understand this attribute, and its ability to create something from nothing and to continue to enliven it. Because creation something from nothing is really a concept that is beyond created intellect. Because it's an expression of Hashem's gedulah, Hashem's greatness. And Hashem and His attributes are one simple unity. Like it says in the Zohar that He and His attributes are one. And just like you cannot understand Him, you cannot understand any of His attributes. Just like no created intellect could understand Hashem, we cannot understand His attributes. Okay? So we cannot fathom what it really means that He creates something from nothing. It's beyond our ability to comprehend. All right. That shouldn't be a difficult concept. That should be, okay, yes, that makes a lot of sense. Got you. Okay. Now, here's the radical concept. Ukamei, and just like. No created intellect can properly understand Hashem's greatness, meaning His expansive property. Meaning His capacity to create something from nothing and to enliven it. Like it says, the world was built on chesed. So just like we cannot fully understand His chesed, His creative, expansive property, kach mamash, so too literally, we cannot understand His self-containing property, the gvura. TZIMTZUM. Now we have the word tzimtzum, which is the attribute called tzimtzum, or contraction. Umenias haispashtus, the holding back of the expansion, HaChayis, of the life force, migdulase, from its expansiveness. Melered, holding it back from descending, and not to allow it to reveal itself to the created beings and to enliven them and to keep them going in a revealed way, but rather in a concealed way. That the life force should be concealed within the created being, as if the created being were ontologically independent, as if it were an entity unto itself, as if it had its own identity, because the Chayis is hidden. We're explaining that sunbeam thing. That how can it be that the sunbeam phenomenon takes place, meaning the fact that creation does exist? How is that possible if it's always in its source, like the sunbeam in the sun? So we said, well, Hashem is like the Shemesh and the Magin, the sun and the sun's shield, and that's Havayah and Elokim, and that's Chesed and Gvura. And that he's simultaneously capable of infinitely expanding and putting out existence, as well as infinitely masking it so that it can have its own identity, as if it were separate.
So it can have its own identity, or so it can appear as it has?
Well, that's a wonderful question. So it can have its own identity, or it can appear to have its own identity. The answer is really both, because from the perspective of creation, it appears to have an identity, and within that context, it does. And yet if you go to the source, it no longer appears to have its own identity, and that is true in that context.
For
So,
the sun,
yeah.
what about for everything? So do we exist or do we not?
So do we exist or do we not? And the answer is both. I mean, yes, of course we exist. The question is,
We don't exist separately.
do we exist separately? So there is a phenomenon of creation. It's not an illusion. We just have to understand the context of it. It's not a binary choice. Do we exist or do we not? We have to understand that there are different vantage points. So we exist. It's true. The world exists. It's true. But there's a bigger picture within which that existence takes place, and learning what we're learning is helping us to have that bigger picture so that we can understand simultaneously the world is real, what we do here matters, and yet the nature of that existence is not independent from ultimate reality, absolute reality, which is Hashem. It's a paradox? Yeah, it's a paradox. It's a blending of perspectives. Yeah.
TZIMTZUM is protecting us from chesed.
TZIMTZUM is protecting us from chesed and gedula, yeah.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, I'll throw it back on you. If Hashem were only exercising chesed and not gvura, then what would be the result? See, the irony is that unbridled creation doesn't end up creating anything.
Unbridled anything doesn't do anything.
When there's no filter,
It's like a stone of marble that's not carved out.
or it's like
It's a channel.
it's like a page with all ink and there's no white space on the page, so it doesn't communicate.
But that's also how Hashem set this up.
Isn't this the conversation with the moon? This is how Hashem first intended it.
I know. I'll always.
So the diminishment of the moon is a physical representation of the tzimtzum. Yes, that is correct.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
is the symptom actually something that enables us to get a glimmer of the light, that we can see Hashem a little bit? Because Hashem has to give us something, and so
Right.
by
Well, right now, let's not even talk about getting a glimmer of the light, because you're talking about, what I see and what I don't see.
Yeah.
I have something much more fundamental than what you see or don't see. Whether you have, exactly, whether you are or you're not. So don't worry about what you're looking at. Think about what you're looking with.
Right.
So you're saying, what will I see? What do you mean, who's I? Who's I? So the very fact that we're capable of having a subjective vantage point and having an experience is the product of tzimtzum. Is Hashem giving space, so to speak, so that phenomenon of seemingly separate consciousness can emerge. Yeah.
Does this also apply to Olam Haba?
What do you mean by Olam Haba? Because we learned that there are two definitions. Which one do you mean? What do you mean? Do you mean the spiritual world where the souls are right now? Yes, there's tzimtzum there. Of course there is. Because if there wouldn't be, they wouldn't have distinct experiences and there wouldn't be levels of Gan Eden. Of course there's tzimtzum.
Okay, and what about after Mashiach?
What will be the nature of tzimtzum after Mashiach comes? Well, I'm trying to exercise tzimtzum right now in my teaching, but I'll tell you a great line from the Rebbe Rashab in Samach Vav. He says that when Mashiach comes and the world will be holier than heaven, it's not that the tzimtzum will be removed from Seder Ishtalshlus, from the system of the worlds, but that the tzimtzum itself will shine. And it's kind of poetic. The code behind the letters, yeah. Okay, so here's what we're saying. Here's the point. There's a lot of stuff to get excited about here, but let's stay grounded in the text. The Alter Rebbe just made a point. He said, listen, we all admit that Hashem's capacity to make something out of nothing and to sustain it, that's uniquely godly and incomprehensible. What I want you to wrap your head around right now is that when Hashem doesn't do it or limits that, that's also uniquely godly and incomprehensible. It's equally as godly and incomprehensible. In other words, we all get impressed by the fact that God's able to do what he does. Nobody really thinks about the fact about what he doesn't do. But what he doesn't do is just as important as what he does do. Because if there's only creativity and expansiveness with no filter and holding back, then the sum total is there is no creation because everything is just subsumed within his oneness and there's not a phenomenon of created existence. So it's part and parcel of creativity that holding back is just as integral to the creative process as the expanding forth. You have to have both. And that's really the chiddush, that's the novel point of this chapter. Not just that there is something called tzimtzum, but that is just as uniquely godly and incomprehensible and just as essential to creation as the gdula, the expansiveness. Because it's very easy to say, well, the fact that Hashem creates something from nothing, that's very godly. But the fact that there are limits upon that, I guess he got tired. He just stopped doing it. He took a break. No. Hashem's expansiveness is like him. It's infinite. So the fact that within that infinity there's a counterbalance, which is not, God forbid, this is very important too. It's not an oppositional force. God forbid. There cannot be resistance to the Creator. So it's not like, God forbid, lahavdil in other theologies where you have a God of light and a God of dark. God forbid. It's all Hashem. It's all Hashem. But it's Hashem's expansiveness and his self-containment working dynamically with each other to yield this phenomenon of creation.
Is it self-restraint?
Self-restraint, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other thing I wanted to ask is it Gevura? Tzimtzum?
Yeah, we said it's Gevura, yeah. Havayah is chesed and Elokim is gvura. Yeah.
So, Rabbi Taub, does this chapter downplay divine providence?
I don't know. That's too deep. Too deep. I can't go there. Any other clarifying questions? No, because we need to learn pshat, simple meaning. Any clarifying questions about pshat? Not the implications of this, simple meaning. Are you lost? Do you not know what words we read? Are we good? Because we have more to go. Okay, sounds like everybody's good. Okay, let's continue. Let's continue. All right. So we say that the gvura or the tzimtzum or shem elakim is that which allows the life force to be hidden within the guf hanivra and allow it to look like a davar b'fnei atzmai. I think that's where we left off, yeah? Ve'eino hispashtas hachayis v'aruchnis ki hispashtas hazir v'o'er ma'ashemesh elohu davar b'fnei atzmai. It hides the fact that it really is like the sunbeam in the sun and makes it appear like it's not. But really the answer before was, hold on a second, God is everywhere, the source is everywhere, so the sunbeam is always within the sun. That was the end of chapter 3, and now we're saying, you're right, it is. It is always within the sun. It is. And yet, because of Hashem's property of gvura, the phenomenon of created existence emerges. Now, although in truth, created beings are not separate entities. It's just like the sunbeam. It doesn't really have a separate existence. Nevertheless, this is the power of Hashem's gvura, which is omnipotent. TZIMTZUM to compress the life force and the spiritual energy that is flowing forth from the breath of his mouth, and to hide it. So that created beings will not be nullified out of existence. They won't be overwhelmed in the face of revealed oneness and subsumed within it. This concept, it is not within the domain of a created intellect to comprehend this tzimtzum, this compression, and this hester, and this concealment. Don't tell me that you know that you can't understand how he makes something from nothing, but you're comfortable with when he stops making something from nothing. The two properties are equally, uniquely godly and equally incomprehensible. Yes.
If we're all, part of Hashem, like the sunbeam is
Yeah.
the sun,
Yeah.
then it almost seems like we weren't created, but it's really the tzimtzum that creates us, and really creation is tzimtzum.
Well, how about we say this? Instead of saying, oh, so we weren't created, how about you say, oh, I've been using the word created wrong all my life.
Okay.
And now I'm learning what the word created means.
So what does created mean?
What we're describing here.
Restraining.
The product of a combination of divine chesed and gevura.
So
Yeah.
it's Tiferes. So Bria.
Bria, creation.
So Sheshis Yimei Bereshis is really Tiferes.
And now. Why is this now?
And it's now also, so it's not, yeah.
I have a question. You said before that it's not an illusion.
It's not an illusion.
But what's the definition of an illusion?
An illusion is something that is only your perception. And what we're saying is, this is not just your perception. It's not like, oh, I was mistaken. It's not a mistake. Hashem is really creating this effect. It's a real effect.
What about perception as opposed to illusion? Because if something exists and you can't see it,
it's very important that we not start to think that the world as we know it only exists in our mind. It's an objective reality. If a tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, it does make a sound. Physical creation is a reality. We just have to understand that the nature of that reality is not as clear cut as we had imagined it to be. We have to just have the bigger picture.
Isn't illusion something in the imagination?
Listen, I don't want to go hold a discussion about illusion. My main point is, I'm just going to say it very bluntly. Very, very bluntly. If you learn this, and it makes you take the physical world and your embodiment less seriously, in as much as doing mitzvahs can only be done in the physical world, and you question whether that is valuable, then you're missing the whole point. If you learn this, and you learn to be less stressed out by red lights and by overdue bills, because you say it's just, Eined Milvade, there's nothing but God, then that's a good application of this. So, well, for that, we need to have another Verbringen, we need to internalize, I know. But right now, this is not the Verbringen. This is just to learn what it says. Okay. What you're going to do with this information, that's the next level. But let's first learn the information properly. Okay. We said this. We can't wrap our heads around this. This is the paradox, he says. We can't get it, how this symptom works, and that nevertheless, the gufa nivra is a nivra ma'ayin liyesh. How does he do both? In other words, you follow the paradox here, where he says, afal pike, nevertheless? If there's tzimtzum that's blocking, then how is he mahavim ma'ayin liyesh? How is he creating something from nothing? Meaning, because that's an expansive move. And if he's creating something from nothing with that expansiveness, how is he mitzamtzum? How is he masking it? So, and these are both infinite forces. What do you call it? The infinite force meets the unmovable, what is it? Unstoppable force meets unmovable object. Yeah, that's what this is. It's like the infinite expansiveness, the chesed, is meeting the infinite containing power, and we can't wrap our heads around either of them independently, let alone the dynamic interplay between them, but the yield of their interplay is reality as we know it. Okay. So we can't get that, just like we can't understand, he says it over and over again. We can't understand this, the containing powers, just like we can't understand the expansive powers. I want to you're going to say, why does he keep saying this? Why does he say this? I get it. No, you don't get it. How do I know you don't get it? Because I didn't get it, and I still don't really get it. But when you think of something and you think of the absence of that thing, obviously the thing is more interesting and impressive than the absence thereof. Now, particularly, the more impressive that thing is, I think the less impressive the absence of it is. And what we're saying is that tzimtzum is not just the absence of creativity, it's another form of creativity. The not creating is just as creative as the creating.
It gives it shape.
Gives it shape, it gives it articulation. Yes.
Otherwise it would
Right.
just be
Right. Okay.
learning all
So
this.
the lower our spiritual FICA score, the better. The more we don't deal with deadlines and bills and all that, the better we are.
Yes. Okay.
And learning all this is still to get us to have love and love.
Thank you for bringing us back to the main point. As we said in the preface, in Chinuch Cotton, that the point of all of this study is that this is the foundation for love and awe of Hashem, because the more we think about Hashem, the more we will love Hashem and be in awe of Him. So now when we think of Hashem, think of how enriched our thoughts about Hashem have become now. Like, I just thought Hashem was like this ATM in the sky. And now, hold on a second, I'm realizing that everything I'm experiencing is this interplay of Havayah and Elokim. It's a much deeper, much more mature understanding not only of created reality, but of Hashem as creator of that reality.
Why
Yeah.
did God want us to know about this expression of divine light? Like when he first did it and the vessel shattered, like why was that necessary for us to know about how that interplay worked?
Well, you're asking a philosophical question. Why should we know? Why does he want us to know about it? But I would like to just keep it very, very simple and say, just like we just said, in this context, the reason that we're supposed to know this is because it helps us to have greater love and awe of Hashem.
There's nothing that we can learn about that.
Oh, there's tons we can learn from it. But I want to stay focused here because the preface of the book, the intro, set us up as far as like why we're doing this. There are many, many reasons, but I don't want to go into that digression. Okay. The point is we're enriching our understanding of Hashem, which will enrich our love and awe of him.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
can the Rabbi please define tohu?
No, because I don't know the word. He didn't teach me the word yet. I don't know the word. Okay. By the way, you guys are very expert students and you know a lot of cool words, and I'm sure you've noticed that if the Alter Rebbe hasn't taught us a word yet, I just avoid it, right? Okay, all right. And there's a reason for that. Okay, I want the Alter Rebbe to teach me the words. And also, there's a reason why he teaches us in the order that he teaches us. Like I told you, by the way, he's going to teach us what the name Elohim means. He taught us the name Havayah in this chapter. He's not going to teach us the name Elohim in this chapter. And there's a reason why I'm avoiding teaching it to you now, because there's an order here. Okay, let's finish the chapter.
I'm just curious why the Alter Rebbe didn't turn this into a meditation.
The whole thing's a meditation. The whole thing's a meditation. Okay, let's finish the chapter. Let's finish the chapter. Okay. All right. Yeah, we said that. Okay. Brackets. Okay, now look at the brackets. V'hinei. Bechinas HaTZIMTZUM v'Hester HaYichud. The tzimtzum, the containment, and the concealment of the life force, Nikra b'Shem Kalim, is called vessels. It's called vessels. V'Chayis Atzmei, and the life force itself, Nikra b'Shem Oyer, is called light. So you have the containers and you have the light. Okay. Just like a container hides what's in it. What's in here?
Vodka.
Could be vodka.
If it was glass, we would be able to see.
Yeah. Just like I'll tell you what it's Keurig Kirkland Keurig coffee from my Keurig machine. I could pass it around if you want. Just like a vessel hides the contents. So too, the tzimtzum covers up the light and the life force that's in it. So you have Hashem containing himself so that you see the container and not the contents. VeHaKelim, these containers, hein ha'oisies, are the letters that we spoke about in chapter 1. The letters are the containers that give articulation, that give form. Each letter is a distinct energy. The combinations of those letters create distinct created beings. So you have the light. The light is sort of just this one size fits all. The container is what gives it shape and form and limits. That's the nature of limits. And he gives an incredible metaphor for this as we continue. We just have a couple lines left. Sheshoshon hey oisis mantzapach. The source of the letters of the Chaf Beis Oisis, the 22 letters, are the 5 terminal letters. You know about the 5 terminal letters? Yeah. So there are 5 letters in the Aleph base, which indicate the end of a word. That's why they're called terminal letters. When you have them, that means stop. That's the end of the word. So you have the mem, the nun, the tzadik, the pei, and the chaf. The 5 terminal letters are the quintessential letters, because what the letters do, they stop things. They create limitation and definition. So the terminal letters are all the more so. They stop things. So you understand the creativity of the letters is where they put contours and parameters to the creativity so that it actually expresses something. Just follow, hold on. Shehain, which are even a higher level, Hey Gvuras, the 5 restraining powers, which divide the breath into 5 compartments of speech, to create the 22 letters. We spoke about this earlier, the 5 compartments of speech. You have the throat, and you have the palate, and you have the tongue, and you have the teeth, and you have the lips. Those 5 parts of the mouth are all locations of friction. They're where the air stops and vibrates. If you do not stop the air, I'm going to speak now without interrupting my airflow. Listen to me very carefully. You can't hear anything.
This was your mother's profession.
So that's right. So when you stop the airflow, that's when you create intelligible communication. So it's ironic, because hold on a second, speak to me, let it all out. No, the only way to actually communicate is by stopping. So the restraining is inherent to the creating. So follow. We have the 5 terminal letters, mantzapach, which are the quintessential letters, because that's what letters are. They are containers. They stop things. In other words, if this cup didn't keep the coffee from flowing out all over the place, it wouldn't be much of a cup, right? The whole point of this is to hold it in, to hold the coffee in. So that comes from ultimately the 5 gvurais, which are in atik, which is keser, which is above Seder Shtauslis. And what those powers do is they give division, compartmentalization. They stop things. Again, this is what I was saying this whole time through this chapter. You think that the doing is so impressive and the not doing is just the lack thereof. No, the stopping, the withholding, the white space on the page, the silence between the notes is equally part of creativity. Okay, so we say that these letters are from the Hegvurais, which separate the air. V'sheirisha Hegvurais, and then even higher, right? So we said the source of the letters are the 5 terminal letters. The source of the 5 terminal letters are the 5 Gvurais, restraining powers of Atik. And even higher, the source of the 5 letters, who Butsina de Cardonisa, is Butsina de Cardonisa. How do you translate that?
What language is that?
Aramaic. The tip is that the words end with aleph, so that's a tip. It's Aramaic. So everyone should at least be literate in the first line of Zayar. Beresh humanusa de Malka, in the beginning of the will of the king, Goluf Galifu Bitihiru Ilah, he made an imprint, he imprinted an imprint in the supernal daylight. Butsina de Cardonisa, a lamp of darkness. Butsina is a lamp, a ner, candle, Cardonisa of darkness. The lamp that emits darkness. The lamp that emits darkness. What does that mean? It means that there's light that shines and there's light that generates the opposite of light. It shines by not shining. It creates...
You can only see light if there's darkness.
You can only see light if there's darkness. And just like my air only creates intelligible speech when I stop it, when I compress it, when I push back on it, right? So this is what we're saying, that the ultimate source for this restraining power, don't think it's just a break from creation or a pause of creation or the absence of creation. No. This is part and parcel of creation, and it's equally godly as the chesed part of creation, and it's equally incomprehensible as the chesed part of creation. So Butina de Cardenisa, Shehi Gvura Ilad de Atigemin, which is the ultimate high supernal Gvura of Atik, V'sheish HaChasadim, and by the way, where's the source of the Chasadim, of the expansive powers? Hu gam kein chesed de Atik Yemin. It's also an Atik. It's just the chesed of Atik, ki yadua liyedechein, as is known to those familiar with the Kabbalah. Did everyone understand the basic concepts here? Give me a one-sentence summary of the chapter. We don't know. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We don't know what. Wait, I'm going to put you on the spot. We don't know what. We don't know what.
We can't understand how Hashem does not create.
We can't understand how Hashem does not create. Right.